She brought forth frameworks and philosophies and ideologies about copy messaging and interactions with your consumer and how they think. Not just what does the words mean, but what do they cause? What feeling do they cause? And what does that make interpreting the next set of words? How does it make that respond? And she presented this massive matrix of different personas with very different variations in them. Even before testing was when it blew me away of just the magnitude and the microscopic engineering. Once we got through the understanding phase of it, and we went into testing, we tested all these variations. And at the end of the day, customer acquisition costs went from $250 to
Hey, welcome to My Best Hire. I'm your host, Rajeev Soni. On this show, we decode how great leaders identify exceptional talent and how outstanding professionals become invaluable to their organizations. Through in-depth conversations with executives and business leaders, we uncovered both sides of the success equation, helping leaders build stronger teams while showing professionals how to stand out and make a lasting difference. So, whether you are building teams or looking to advance your own career, join us as we explore the stories of remarkable talent and leaders who recognized their potential. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Justin True to our podcast. Justin is a marketing advisor and works as a fractional CMO out of Chicago. He specializes in transforming marketing teams into high-performing growth engines. With over 15 years of leadership experience, Justin combines strategic insights and practical execution to drive growth across 35 plus industries, including AI, health tech, cybersecurity, and fintech. He has managed over $30 million in marketing spend and has helped more than 50 businesses scale successfully. And what truly sets Justin apart is his unmatched energy. Every conversation with him leaves me feeling fully energized and inspired. And though we may have known each other only for a few months, it feels like we have been friends for years. And that's Justin's superpower, making everyone feel instantly comfortable and understood. Justin also recently launched his own podcast, True Experts, where he speaks with exceptional marketing professionals to uncover their stories and marketing insights. Justin joins us to speak about his best hire and the valuable lessons he learned about identifying and developing exceptional talent. Justin, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you. Yeah, I've been doing this fractional CMO marketing advisor. I've been on this path for about 3 years now. It's been an amazing 3 years. It really started almost 20 years ago. I knew very early, even before college, that I enjoyed working with people and being hands-on and working with a lot of people. As soon as I graduated college, I started peddling websites to small businesses, and that turned into more and more businesses, but I only had so much time because I had a day job. And I realized that if I wanted to, I could just do this full time. I could make websites and teach people how to market, but I knew there was bigger strategy, bigger tools, bigger skills I needed to learn and accomplish to be able to really stand up and have something to say that made sense and had enough backing for it to be real. So I went down my career path, and every time I left a job and took a new job, it was always with the intention of, is this going to get me closer to where I want to be one day in order to have the choice of who I want to work with and who I want to spend my time with and those that I could help the most. And about 3 years ago, that crossroad happened, and it was a big decision, but it also wasn't that big of a decision. It had been in the works for years, and it's been a really great 3 years so far, and I'm looking forward to many, many more years of doing it. My favorite part is working with people.
That's amazing. And that's where I want to start with. Who are we speaking about today?
We're talking about Selina.
Nice. So can you get us into the frame of when did you hire? What did you work with Selina as? And when was this?
Absolutely. Roll back the clocks. Probably 7 years. I was at a technology company. The technology company was striving to go from 12 million to 20 million in revenue. I was building the marketing department basically from scratch for maybe 6 to 9 months. It was just me putting the foundation pieces in: CRM, design, general messaging, strategy of how we were going to go out. Once we got to that next level of needing to really start to pump out a lot of content and do a lot of work, I knew I needed somebody that had a really deep understanding of written language and tying that in with business value and buyer need. And so I set my sights out to find a copywriter, but they also needed to have a little bit of a general marketing palette and skill set to be able to help out around the house with the CRM and with the website and with social and publishing and planning, the whole 9 yards. And so that was the need that I had. And I put a job rec out there, and 125-ish applicants over a week was the first time I had had that many resumes to look at. I wanted to do every resume justice, give it the respect that it deserved by really reading every single one. But when you have that quantity, and I know even today, like 125 isn't that many compared to what
I know.
companies see.
Exactly.
So I had 125 resumes. I was doing a really quick job of not quite the staircase method, but just really doing a quick glance to say, should I spend more time looking at this? Should I not? And in that first run, I found a resume that really checked the boxes so much that I just put it into a different pile that was like, okay, let's see if this is actual truth and if it's real. But because it was so good that I just put it in a different pile. So I separated the piles into really don't need to look at, went through those. I was like, okay, now let's look at this one. And I went through it. It really did continue to make me believe that this person had the skill sets. I knew that I needed to continue to validate that. So gave the rest of the resumes thorough looks, interviewed maybe 15 individual people, quick phone interviews. It was really within the first couple minutes of her and I's phone call that I was having to withhold my basically decision that had already been made in order to ensure that due process was done, and that I could go back to my leadership and say, like, I did what I need to do as the hiring manager to make sure I made the right decision. So we did that. We did that call. We did an in-person conversation, in-person interview. And I remember I then had to go on a work trip for a conference. So I was very busy, and I was basically a few days away from making the offer. And I called her and I was just like, hey, I just need to talk one more time. And we were super crystal clear, brass tacks. This is what I need. I want you to participate. Is this something you want? Are we on the same page? And I felt like I was going very much out of normal conversation flow with being like so open and truthful. But I knew that what was the point of not being crystal clear and candid? And that holds true with like any relationship, right? So we had this final phone call and I was just like, cool, I'm going to send you this offer. Like, what do you want to make? Let's just all be on the same page. And she accepted, and that was our first phase of our journey together. I later left that company, maybe like 2 years later. She took over the department, did a great job there, kept the ball going, kept things going. Company that I was at, surprise, my job was to build a marketing department. Again, that's what I do for a living. But this time it was so much more intense and it was so much bigger. And I had to hire 5 people, and this specific skill set that I needed. I knew I was going to hire her like the day I took the job. I just knew I had to get there. I had to get to that spot to where the team was ready to be, the seats were ready to be filled. And I'm pretty sure I even texted her like around the time I started and said, like, just a heads up, I'm probably going to call you in 6 to 9 months. And because I was so in depth with that company, in deep, I was able to really do whatever type of hiring process I wanted. And I did not do a traditional hiring process. I called the people I knew to join the team. And it was such a cool experience to just know that I have people on the bench and I didn't have to take the months and months or whatever in the time. I just knew, like, I know who's going to do this job. I'm going to call them and they're going to tell me when they can be here. And then they showed up. And she was one of them.
Wow. We definitely want to speak about other people as well in the subsequent podcast episode, but let's keep the focus on Selina for now. So what I understand story till now, right from the point of seeing her resume, you knew that this was somebody special. And when you spoke with her, your mind was made up, and that pattern of her being head and shoulders above the other content writers has continued. So I want to speak about when was the first time or when was the most important point of time when you felt this was the promise of her being amazing and this is where she delivered. Do you remember one particular incident, one particular case where her skill set and capabilities shone through?
There were several times where Selina took the project, the task that she was doing, and got 100% and went above and beyond and did great. But then there was a period where it was like 10x above and beyond, and it's not that I wasn't expecting it because she always did great stuff, but then when she did it, I was like, oh my god, this makes so much sense. Of course she would perform this way and do these things. The product that we were marketing was a complicated product. It was a complicated value exchange, and it just wasn't resonating with the consumers that we were targeting. And she said, hey, I think we need to reevaluate our messaging. And I was like, yes, great. That is what you are here to do. And I said, go, like, run with it, do your thing. Let's talk whenever you want to talk, whenever you're ready to discuss what you've been thinking of. And she came back with frameworks that I had never seen before. As a CMO, I am not expected to know everything. I'm expected to know a lot about a lot of the areas and functions, but it is unrealistic to think that I'm an expert in every facet of it, which is why you bring in the people that are really good at their domain and their lane. She brought forth frameworks and philosophies and ideologies about copy messaging and interactions with your consumer and how they think. What does the words, not just what does the words mean, but what do they cause? What feeling do they cause? And what does that make interpreting the next set of words? How does it make that respond? And she presented this massive matrix of different personas with very different variations in them. Problem aware, problem unaware, solution unaware, and really mapped out every possibility of a mindset of our target consumer that you could ever think of. We tested all of these, and there were dozens of different ways to talk about this. We tested all of these. And I mean, even before testing was when it blew me away of just the magnitude and the microscopic engineering that she went to the depths. I imagine that she went and like locked herself in a closet for 10 days and like didn't talk to another human being and just like engulfed this stuff and came out with like, here you go. Once we got through the understanding phase of it and we went into testing, we tested all these variations. And at the end of the day, customer acquisition costs went from $250 to $5.
Wow.
There's two ways I see this scenario being awesome. One, she did what she was supposed to do and took it to the next level, which was amazing in itself. But then when you actually take that work and put it into motion and put it into real life, and it has the effect that you wanted it to have, most of the time it doesn't work out that way. And it worked out that way so intense and so successful that it drove where the product went like from that day forward, and how the product continued to evolve and form its own identity. Like the way the product thought of itself changed because of how she tinkered with the copy.
Wow. All right. So I think it's called the Eugene Schwartz, the levels of awareness, something like that. There are 5 stages of awareness. And so what she, in essence, was able to do was use this framework to understand and identify the specific messaging for each of these the users, buyers, customers in the space that allowed you to have amazingly outsized results. That's really good and smart. What are some of the other skills and capabilities do you think she brought that actually really had her be an amazing team player?
It's something that I've learned is what I think is the number one attribute, and it's curiosity. The desire to seek and explore and learn, because the more information you have, the more versatile the decision outcome can be. And when you have more information to make a decision, often it's a better decision, which if you're still curious at that point, you're going to go get more information. And it's just a massive amount of intelligence gathering is what I see curiosity drives. And the more information you have, the better. It was her underlying curiosity was a attribute outside of her core like skill.
Curiosity, when combined with the willingness to experiment and try things out, I think that's a killer combination. So in order to also lead such amazing individuals, you as a leader also have to nurture and develop the talent like this. So can you tell me about what you did as a leader to make sure that Selina's best came to work every single day?
Totally. I think whether you say boss or leader, you know, can everybody be led? Probably, but can everybody lead anybody? And I think the answer is absolutely not. I think at the core, finding your match early, being able to get a read on, does my personality jive with this person's personality? And is this person's personality going to jive with my personality? And man, by trying to cover that ground early, you quickly eliminate a lot of the failure or the fractures that can happen, and you can quickly increase the amount of trust that you can have with somebody. And when you have trust and you have open communication, you can really do anything. One of the things I've always tried to do, hopefully it's always happened, when I know I have a role to fill, I try to make sure that role, that function is really only going to take up 50 to 70% of the person's time, because my style is not to work with robots. It's to work with people that are curious and have drive. And if you walk in the door and you already have 110% of your tasks loaded up, you're never going to get to take an extra lap around the track just because you felt great that day, because you had to do exactly what was prescribed. And so I try to make sure that somebody walks in the door with not a full plate so that they can then go put whatever they want on that plate. And what I'm going to do is help them make sure that they're making the right decisions of what they're putting on that plate, and that the quantity is correct, or if there's too much salt or not enough pepper. And having that ability to jive well and personalities mesh, having the ability to then develop a sense of trust, to then develop a deeper sense of communication, allows the ability to have an open dynamic to say, go fill your plate and let me know when you're full and you can't move. And I push people to get really full to where they can't move, because then we get to go use two brains to figure out, how do we reorganize this plate to make sure it is a balanced scenario, but then overbalance so that you can optimize and create efficiencies and realize, well, you had fun doing that one thing, but when we look at the grand scheme, you actually don't need to really do that anymore. Like, what do you think? And I'd like to give people the ability to make their own decisions with just a little bit of context from my experiences and to let them bake their own cakes and ultimately have a good time. And so it just goes back to that curiosity. If you've got drive and you're curious and you're good at what you do, let's make you better at anything you want, because you're going to have a good time and you're going to keep moving forward. And it's just going to be this reciprocal like movement and positivity that drives the business. There really was only one time that it didn't work out. And it was a bit of a catastrophic event. And I learned from that. Individuals I work with today, some of my best moments have been over the past 3 years where I'm working with younger marketing professionals and we just get to be this back and forth to help them do their job better and think about where do they want to go after this, and think about, is what you're doing today going to get you to where you're going? When you have this open mind, forward, positive looking direction, I haven't really found that it doesn't work.
That's amazing. There are two parts to this that I'm hearing. I just want to make sure that we get into the depth of it. Number one, as you mentioned, is the match of the personalities, where you have the right personalities, where you have the right people. So is there a way that you identify what are the personalities that are going to work? Somebody that you want to bring in your team actually has the personality that will gel well, not just with you, but with the rest of the team and the team's vibe.
Yeah.
That's number one. And please, let's answer this and then we'll go to the next one.
I would never consider myself a expert like hiring manager or interview or psychologist or anything that is really deep in the semantics of communication back and forth. What I've learned is I'm an intense communicator. I talk a lot. It would be wildly unfair for me to judge somebody on if they just talked back a lot to me. Like if we had this 50-50 communication, that's not the scorecard, right? We could not jive well, and we could talk the same amount. So my statement of I would never claim to be the world's greatest hiring type of person, because I don't actually have a specific methodology of look for this tick or look for that gesture or listen for these words. It's really just, can conversation flow, and do we have a back and forth that is mutual and comfortable, and could I see myself talking to this person frequently, often, and about stuff that's complicated and isn't always going to be. There's no science. It's really just a subconscious, instinctual human nature of communication, and how does it feel?
Okay. Understood. So you may not have specific questions or specific ways to assess that, but you're able to do it based on the interaction, based on the conversation, because you can talk a lot without saying a lot. It's the communication between two people where there's a back and forth and there's a mutual development of some thought, some idea that actually elevates the conversation. And we all as human beings have actually experienced that, where you speak with somebody, as you rightly said, that they can speak the same amount. It's not the percentage of the amount that the person said, but was it building up on some of the things rather than just back and forth. So I get that. As human beings, we actually have a pretty good sense of how we do this. I was just looking for if you have something specific that you look for. So that's one. The second part you said is very right. And actually in the first episode, my friend Eddie spoke about the same thing, that, okay, he spoke in the different words. He had more colorful words. So he said, okay, it's the monkey on their back. They have to handle it. You cannot handle it for somebody else, but you can create the space and the environment where somebody can really perform well. And one very important thing that you have mentioned, that people tend to be missing out on this. Google used to have this 20% time where you could do your passion projects and the work. So I'm really glad to hear that you're talking about do not overload somebody. We are human beings at the end of the day. We are not machines, where we need that space to do our best. Think of some of the ideas. And in fact, even the example that you gave, if Selina was just working on one piece of content after another, she would never have had the time, opportunity, or the mental space to even think about the stages of awareness paradigm. So that is a very important point.
I also think, and this gets in definitely a little more into the human resources side and the philosophies and the sciences of having an organization and the balance. I like my job. I typically have always liked my jobs, and I've liked them so much that I've fused them into who I am.
Hmm.
And because of that, I always took this mentality of, why do I have to do this 8 to 5? Why do I have to be there at a certain time? And that's telling me that, well, I shouldn't be thinking about it after a certain time. I should be thinking about other things. Well, when you just like throw that out the door and you just say, what I spend most of my time doing is something I enjoy, and I work for a company that I believe in the mission, and the work that I'm doing is making me happy, you can
Mm-hmm.
have this fusion of, well, your work, you're just living, and work is part of your life, and it's part of your natural cycles. When you really push that deep, which is what I've done with everybody I've worked with, is I don't care unless we have a meeting. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
where you are, when you are. I don't care how many days you take off. I don't care what you do, as long as you're happy and having fun and feel that you're part of the team. And when you got everybody on the same team, and they're rowing in the same direction 90% of the time, you can win a lot of races.
Absolutely. So that brings us to a very good point. In order to develop a person's career, there have to be a few things that their leadership, their managers can actually do. They can give them more opportunities, more exposures, and at the same time balance that with they feel challenged and supported at the same time. Can you talk about how did you do that with Selina?
So as I've already said, I can talk a lot, and one of the big differences between Selena and I, Selena was was less extroverted than I am, and so we did have this unique dynamic where there didn't always have to be a lot of words, but we still could communicate. Granted, I was often the one, with 99% of the words, but there were times and scenarios where I knew that a certain type of exercise or a certain type of responsibility or interaction outside agencies, contractors, that I could manage it. I could manage it. I could manage them. And I would probably be good at it because it would just require a lot of people interaction. But I knew that stretching that muscle a little bit, she might not like it, but I knew it would be good. So we talked about it. We talked about that. And I said, is this something that you would be open to? I remember there were several occasions where we would do this. I don't think it was ever like she was jumping for joy, wanting to do what I wanted her to do.
Can you give us an example? Like, okay, that will make it real.
It was I'm pretty sure it was an external content writing agency, because we were at the time we were producing so much stuff that we had other parties involved, but that required interacting with this other company and with these people on a very regular basis. And Selena being way more chill and like staying in her lane and being really comfortable with that, it was a stretch to have to communicate with many people on a regular basis. She really didn't want to do it. I thought it would be good for her. We talked about why I thought it would be good for her, and she said,
Mhm.
"Cool, like let's go down this path. Let's do it." And it didn't. I don't think it lasted forever, but it was a good opportunity for her to hear what I had to say, what I recommended as this would be good. And she said, "I don't really want to, but I will," and did, and everything continued to work out. I think there was another time where we had somebody on the team, and I was getting overloaded by also managing that person, and I asked if she wanted to take on a little more of helping direct that person, and the answer was no, and that's okay. And so it didn't happen. You know,
Okay.
uh, I am not I'm not right 100% of the time. I just work with the context and the intel that I have to make conclusions and decisions. Sometimes those decisions are hard and they're not going to change, but it's not just me we're talking about, it's this team effort. So my job is to make sure the boat is rowing at the appropriate rate and in the appropriate direction. Doesn't mean it's hard starboard at 25 knots, 24/7, 365. We may veer, as long as we're getting to where we want to go, we're all good.
True, the road to success is not straight in my experience ever. So yeah, that makes sense. And then every individual have their own preferences, own proclivities to what do they want to do and where do they want to get in. Some people want to get more leadership and get into a more leadership experience very quickly. They want to rise through the ranks. And there are some people who want to continue to develop their craft as much as possible. They don't necessarily care about, okay, whether they are managing 5 people today, 50 people tomorrow, or even one person. So it is critically important for us as leaders understand what does the person want and then align their career progress with their preferences and where their natural strengths lie. And I love this, okay, that you pushed her just to try it on as a coat. Like you go to a shopping mall, you try on a coat, you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's okay. But trying it out is important. And it seems like, okay, you actually gave her the opportunity to try it out.
Yeah.
So let's come to the last and final part of our conversation, the recommendations and your advice for recruiters, leaders, and professionals. So let's jump into the recruiters first, right? You have been the hiring manager, have been in the recruiting position. So what recommendation or advice would you have for the recruiters to hire such outstanding individuals?
Yeah. Not being so binary with the immediate expectations of how you're going to judge and delineate. If there's 3 things they have to have, maybe just make it one thing, and it could be any of the 3, so that you can have the opportunity to talk to people, because on paper is different than in person. And some things can't be translated on paper as much as you want them or as much as you think they can. And so I would say opening the gates up a little more to let more candidates in that maybe don't fit the mold, because you might find that the mold doesn't fit the person because the person's better than the mold.
I get that. I completely understand that. Absolutely. Human beings are multidimensional. There's no two ways about it. And trying to get, as you very rightly said, being very binary with it doesn't really serve you. Yes, there are 500,000 people applying. And yes, it is absolutely correct that you can actually assess every single person on all of the parameters at all the times. But you really have to look at it. In fact, we're building a platform called Effectv.ai that actually helps the recruiters and hiring managers really objectively map out what does the job require is absolutely essential, good to have. And once you are able to map that, you can actually identify the people in the right manner.
Yeah. I saw a guy on LinkedIn who I've been following for several years. He's a pretty significant marketing leader, and he just hired like 6 or 7 people at his new company, and he did not post a job description publicly. I think half of them were like people he knew from other places. They had worked for him previously. Surprise, surprise. The other half was all referrals from his network. Granted, this guy has a large following, so he's got that capability. But
yeah,
one of the things that he did that I noticed a couple months ago was when he put the call out on LinkedIn to say, I'm looking for these types of roles. If anybody knows anybody, send them this link, send them the post. He requested I want to say a 60-second video of the person. And I think they had 2 or 3 questions they had to answer and talk about within the 60 seconds. And that was step 1. That was the first and only pass to get to the next level. And so where I'm going, because I know that your platform utilizes AI just like everything else does today, and that's why I said earlier, like there's things that on paper can't be, there's things that can't be put on paper that you can translate into in-person interactions. So just maybe there's a better way to dynamically evaluate candidates at scale.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, just this week we had Harsh Diwan on the podcast, and he had literally exactly the same thing that you're speaking about. That resume doesn't tell a complete story. You want to have other ways of evaluating and at least screening the people that you want to interview, because a resume will never tell the complete story.
Resume can hold, it can hold so much ink. Like there's a limit to how much ink it can hold, right? Even if you make the font tiny, there's only so much. There's only so many letters that can be put on the page. Yeah, it's just a piece of paper with ones, zeros, A's to Z's. And that can say a lot, but there's a lot more to people than to a person than a piece of paper.
That's absolutely true. So we got the person in through the hiring. Now, what advice and recommendation would you have for the leaders to actually lead? We already have spoken about it. Challenge them, at the same time give them space, give them the support, trust their guidance. Any other advice do you have for the leaders to make sure that they are getting the best version of their people every single day?
All you have in that scenario is a relationship. And if you don't treat it like a relationship, like a connection with another person and another human, if you're not going to do that, then don't waste anybody's time. Treat the person on the other side of the table, treat them to being on the same side of the table as you, and treat them like you would any other human being, and seek to understand them and seek to teach, and just try to create a more humanistic connection, and you go places you never could have imagined, because two brains, two connections, like infinite possibilities.
Absolutely. 100%. The classic case of one and one can add up to more than two, more than 11 too. Perfect. So the last question that I have for you is that we are all professionals. A lot of us would love to be featured as the best hire on the My Best Hire podcast. So what advice would you have for the professionals who want to bring their best to their career? As we have established, the workplace is not a separate thing away from your life. It is part of your life. And at least till the AI either serves us completely or makes us all slaves, we are going to have to continue to work to make a living, as well as to live and make a life for ourselves. Because work also gives a lot of purpose to a lot of people.
I have had the pleasure and a lot of fun. Side note, I hired a career coach like 10 years ago to help me navigate a decision path that I was on. I have since recommended everybody I've ever known that's like looking for a job to go find a career coach that they jive with, because it's like having a therapist, but they're really good about understanding career and the mechanics of that decision. So I've then had the pleasure of I don't know, maybe like 10 or 15 either direct connections or friends of friends. Even had employees at places I shop at that frequently, that have like stopped and just been like, can we go grab a cup of coffee and talk about my career?
Wow.
What I always say is, do you like animals? And the answer is almost always yes. And so I say, well, okay, well, let's go to Chewy.com or Chewy's LinkedIn page, the animal website, and let's just go look at the jobs that they have and pick the 3 or 5 that you think would be fun for you to do. Do I want to be the CMO for a company that I would never buy the products for? Absolutely not, right? Would I want to be the CMO of a company that I adore? I would give anything to do that, right? Like, and so would I swap out the job? Would I want to be a janitor at a company I didn't like? No. Would I want to be a janitor at a company I loved? I'm contributing to a bigger, greater purpose. I might consider it, right? And so if you first take that layer of what am I doing and what is my purpose and where am I spending my time? And if you can just put that foundational component into, yes, I want to be here, I want to be part of this mission, you're going to go 100 times further in that lane than if you just took a job just to make the money, 8 to 5, clocked out, went home. And so my advice is to start where you love and start where you have deep interest and passion, and then go find your skill set or your lane that you're going to stay in, or the 3 lanes that you want to work with. And then always be curious. always be looking, always be learning. And if you just went down that path for like 3 to 5 years, I bet you'd be further along than potentially somebody with an MBA and 4 or 5 years undergrad, just because of the depths that you were able to go with hands-on drive and then get experience. So be passionate about what you do and always stay curious. They will take you to places you can't think of yet.
That's really sage advice. And yes, it jives very well with what typically I recommend. I mentor a bunch of people as well. And the first part, especially from the people who are actually just starting out their career, my recommendation typically to them is go on a journey of discovery rather than going on the journey of invention. Discover what do you really like and enjoy to do, what are you good at, where do you flow, rather than the invention, which is I looked at that person's that cousin of mine or that person I really admire, they have had this amazing career, so let me go and chase that career, rather than actually creating your own path. So that's what I call the difference between the discovery and the invention. I want to become this consultant. I want to become this person. I want to become this product manager. I want to become this. I have reached a great place in my path, in my career. But looking back, I could have taken away so much pain, so much struggle had I gone on the journey of discovery before I went on the journey of invention. So very, very sage advice, Justin. It's truly amazing to speak with you. How can the listeners be useful to you?
I'm going down my own journey right now of amplifying my voice and my thought processes in the domain that I work in, marketing and business advising. I'm going on the path of producing a lot of content. You mentioned my podcast. That's happening. I'm also regularly pushing out short form video, regularly pushing out blogs, and really just trying to amplify what it is JDT Advisors does and tries to make positive impact. If they would like to check out any of my content, it's jdtadvisors.com. I'm available on LinkedIn for any type of conversations, engagements, and connections.
Perfect. So we'll put your social handles in the show notes so listeners can find you. Justin, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. It was fun. Appreciate it.